It's true. I, in particular, have a, say, infamous reputation.
I won't name names.
Diane Batson
Okay.
Smith.
What
senior
do you think their rating was?
And Jose Tapia.
I just kind of hate his fucking guts. He kind of looks like the villain from
You don't listen.
This is the story of how I interviewed the worst rated professor ever. So basically everyone's had a bad experience with a teacher or professor at some point in their life. I usually spend hours on Rate My Professor before each semester, meticulously finding the perfect schedule. After seeing some really horrid reviews on there, I got thinking, who is the worst rated professor? How do they teach? What do they do? How old are they? What do they smell like? These are all things that were coming in my mind. This was too good of a question to avoid, so I went to the best source I could. College campuses.
Chapter 1. Finding the Professor.
Who's your least favorite professor on campus?
Chris Cagle. He kind of talks like this, and he'd be like, "Hey class, welcome back to another Media and Culture. Today we're gonna be watching Grey's Anatomy."
Professor Nair. That dude's like a megalomaniac.
I like all my professors.
But a teacher I'm gonna say is Miss Michelle. She sound like Lil Wayne when he just wake up. Sound like this, like
Diane Batson Smith.
Looked up this woman's name and immediately thought of a very intelligent trilobite, like a prehistoric anthropod.
She made us buy a textbook that had nothing to do with the class.
How much money was the textbook?
I never bought it, so that's how worthless the textbook was.
I think that makes sense.
Someone in the chemistry department. I won't name names.
Will they lose their job if I do this?
Last name Lynn?
Yeah. Yeah. If you get one question wrong on the first part of an exam, you get a 0.
Professor Eisen something.
Eisen?
No, it's Eisen something. That's the first part. There's a last part to it. She'd be like, "You don't listen."
I mean, I have some beef, but it was my fault. I missed a project, and then she wouldn't let me make it up.
She tells everyone to sit down, hands us a 5-page worksheet, and goes, "You have 50 minutes to complete this, and if you don't, then you're gonna be marked absent." What the f?
Yeah. After this girl took a picture with me, she vomited because she smelled my BO. After doing these interviews, I realized Temple University was not afraid to express their thoughts on their professor.
Megalomaniac?
There was no fear. Although there were a lot of people that straight up ignored me because I looked like I should be ignored probably. So then the next day we went to Drexel. This is the second day interviewing people. I'm on Drexel's campus now.
I like all my professors, to be honest.
He's killed me.
Dr. Farouk. He didn't use my AVL for my disability.
After I heard this, I realized this little funny documentary video might be a lot more serious than I thought. What has happened? Does the cat have something? I loved this little feline friend. There's kids watching, bro.
Jose Tapia.
Why is Jose Tapia bad?
King of waffling, you know?
King of waffling.
Yeah.
Wait, no, I can pull it up. Real quick.
Shannon Capps, bro. She is horrendous.
Starts yapping for 2 hours, bro, and yeah, that's about it.
One-on-one yapper.
I don't know who this guy is. A bad person.
Nah, she just...
Yeah, I don't know who he is, really.
Mark Stockton. I just kind of hate his fucking guts. He kind of looks like the villain from Alvin and Chipmunks.
Yeah, So Drexel had quite harsh professor reviews as well.
I just kind of hate his fucking guts.
So now it's time to move on to UPenn. We're on UPenn's campus now.
Not really. Nothing comes to mind. I feel like,
yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Do you mind?
Mr. Andrew Cooper.
Little did I know, this name would be a huge part of my next 2 weeks. I had no idea that I had stumbled upon the possible worst professor, maybe the worst rated professor on the entire website. His stats were completely maxed out to the worst of the worst. And his Twitter profile was pretty interesting. Just dreamt I was in India to get married. Got trapped there, which is also Lansing, Michigan and New Orleans, by a mind virus carried on a Yeats poem. Oh, and I fucked Susan Sarandon. Hey babe, what if instead of meet cute, we had feet cute? God grant me the outraged fury of an Ivy League student emailing me about how their B+ is much lower than expected.
It's that whole thing where if you ask questions online, he'll respond, and he's not nice.
He'll what, right?
No, he does respond, but he doesn't give you the answer. He just says figure it out yourself. I think he has questionable Twitter posts too. People have accused him of being a furry.
No fucking way these guys go to bed.
We experienced around 8 sorority and frat initiations this night.
This is the Ivy League?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, that's awkward.
You go here?
You ever had bad professor experience? I'm doing a documentary.
Yeah.
Can you talk about it? Have you ever had a bad experience with a professor?
Hey, buddy, you're supposed to fucking talk.
The one name we got out of UPenn was Dr. Andrew Cooper. After this, still wasn't satisfied with the amount of names we got, so I went onto my Instagram story and posted asking people to DM me if they had any bad experiences with professors. And then after that, I scrolled on Rate My Professor for a while just to see if I could find any other outliers, and I compiled all of this data into a notes page with their emails, names, and ratings. I then created this email that said, "Hi, my name is Jeb. I'm a student at Temple and I'm doing a short documentary about different kinds of teaching styles. I would love to interview you about your personal style of teaching. If this sounds interesting and you're open to being on camera, let me know." I then copy and pasted this and mass sent it out to every single professor that I got a list of. It was a tough process and I don't know who would have responded. I would just I'm sorry. Wait, can you yeah, sorry. Okay, copy and paste this interview. Okay, back, send. Click, okay. All right, then I started interviewing a little bit more and sending these, and then I waited a few days. After a few days, I got 3 responses. And keep in mind, I sent this about 25, 30 professors. So one of those was Tan Yoon. "Hello, Jeb. Thanks for reaching out. I am not interested in this documentary. Hope you'll be able to find other professors. Regards, Tan Yoon." Thanks for being straightforward. The next person was Emilio Salguero, who said that he'd be happy to participate. Sadly, this was a Zoom meeting, but I was still very excited because he was rated 1 star, or 1.6, with some very bad reviews. Take the L before you take this class. A few days go by and I get on the Zoom. There was no audio at all, but I did learn that Emilio is a very nice guy who was aware of his bad rating. And then a very familiar name appeared. Dr. Andrew Cooper. I couldn't believe my eyes. The worst rated professor on Rate My Professor that I have ever seen has replied. Not just his ratings were bad. The things said about him were very, very intriguing, along with his profile picture. He says, "Sure, I'm free Mondays and Wednesdays. Would you come to Penn or would I need to come to Temple?" I was like, okay, he's willing. He wants to do this. He'd come all the way to Temple. I say, "Hi, thank you for your quick response. Wednesdays after 3:15 works perfect for me, and I would be able to come to UPenn." He replies, and the meeting was set up. This wasn't a Zoom meeting this time. This was an in-person meeting with possibly the worst rated professor on the entire website. This was single-handedly the most unique, negatively rated professor I had seen yet. It was a perfect storm. This was not an occasion I was going to take lightly. So I prepared my questions, put on the most scholarly outfit I could, and got a team together with an audio man, 2 cameramen, and we arrived at UPenn. Now, this is chapter 2, the interview. I arrived very nervous because he still didn't know the content of this interview. We shook hands, set up the equipment, and sat down. And then I said,
"Okay, so what is your name, first of all?"
I'm Dr. Andrew Cooper. Originally, I'm from South Texas. I grew up in San Antonio.
How do you get into math in general?
You know, I always wanted to do math, even from when I was like a little kid, which is ridiculous because I had no idea what that even meant. I was 4 or 5, and I was talking to my dad about numbers, and, you know, kind of worked out, like, you know, why we need negative numbers, because sometimes the addition problem doesn't have an answer, right? So
You're upset.
Yeah, since then, yeah.
Cool. I'll stop talking about academics real quick. Sure. I'll go into some of your hobbies.
I play saxophone. That's a big interest of mine. I mean, I kind of do music generally, so saxophone is my primary. But so in grad school, like I was in an Afrobeat band, which was a lot of fun. And let's see, other than that, I brew beer and mead.
What's the process of that like? I can't even think of it.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I felt a little comfortable, so I decided to get a little bit informal. My brain started thinking of things I could say. I landed on this.
So you basically you pick out a sugar that you want, and you pick out a yeast that you want, and you throw the yeast in and you put it someplace dark and don't touch it.
Dark. Yeah, that's what my mom did to me. No, I'm not kidding.
This really got him. He was cracking up. I couldn't think straight. This seemingly was the funniest joke of all time.
I lost my train of thought. How did you end up getting the UPenn?
I graduated undergrad in 2 calendar years, so I think I was 20 when I started my PhD, and then I graduated, I think I was 25 when I graduated. As I was graduating, you know, I applied for lots of academic jobs, mainly postdoctoral jobs, so, you know, term positions that are 2 or 3 years. The idea is you go someplace different from where you did your PhD, so you get to kind of learn how they do things there. I guess I got the job here at Penn, and that was the title was Hans Rademacher Lecturer. After my second year, I applied for jobs. I ended up getting a job at North Carolina State, which is a very different institutional profile from from Penn.
Yeah, definitely.
I was there for 6 years, and then the Penn Math department decided they wanted me back. Now my title is senior lecturer.
Can you walk me through what that looks like and what the components of the job are?
So I teach a substantial number of classes. So I teach either 3 classes or 2 classes a semester. So the fall might have 1,000 students in that class.
Wow.
We have, it's a lot of, there's a lot of students. So what we've done is, and this is a fairly recent shift, I think the past few years, we have switched to what's called a flipped classroom. And the idea is that instead of us lecturing, what the students do is they ask questions. They kind of try to figure out what things that they understand and that they don't. Active learning activities in class. So, you know, here's a problem, talk it over with the person sitting next to you. Sometimes I'll give them an alternative and say, okay, everybody's going to vote, and you have to decide which one of these alternatives you think is true. And we try to turn the large lecture hall and make it sort of smaller and more interactive. So the idea is, instead of having a question at like 1 in the morning while you're studying, you have that question when there's a bunch of other people there, and also when there's a professional, an expert in the subject.
Had you approached a situation when the student doesn't understand something or they're having problems with it?
The most important thing is to get them to figure out what it is that they're asking. The first thing that I try to get the students to do is to write their questions down, not just to think about what they are, but actually to write them down. What is it that I'm failing to understand here? That's a really helpful thing. And sometimes by the time they articulate the question, they've already figured it out. So what I do is I have the students turn to their neighbor. So they have their 2 questions that they've written down, and then they turn to the neighbor and they just ask their neighbor the question. What I find is once a student has said their question to someone, to a peer, then they're much more comfortable saying it to anyone else.
So if they don't know with their peer, then they go to you or a different peer?
I call for the questions so that everybody can hear them. And I say, you know, if you have a question that you're afraid is a dumb question, you can blame it on your partner. Or you can say it was their question. Or if it was a really good question, you can take credit for it.
Do you ever fear that someone's not going to come up because they think it's a stupid question and then they get behind or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely, which is why, so the trick of just having them say it to the person next to them, it's amazing how well it works. It works every time, and it goes from crickets to a deafening noise, right? Just everyone saying something in a normal conversational voice, but there's 100 or 150 of you in a room. I can clearly hear what they're saying, so it's not an issue of like people were quiet and like they just weren't making themselves known. I tell them that that's the trick I'm playing on them, right? I say, like, look, it was very easy for you to talk to your neighbor. It was very hard for you to say something in front of the whole class. And eventually, throughout the semester, they get more comfortable doing it.
Cool. Okay, so while I was researching all the professors, I also went on to rate my professor. The negatives are highlighted.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I, in particular, have a fairly, say, infamous reputation. If that really does, I think, flavor how students interact with someone. If they believe it's going to be terrible, then it's terrible. If they believe it's going to be good, then it's good. Whether a professor is going to be good for you or bad for you is not something that another student is going to be able to inform. Granted, there are students who, you know, come in and they don't like what I'm doing. And that's fine. But if you really want to learn something, you have to be really, really honest with yourself. And that means hearing bad news, like, you know, you made a mistake, or you thought you understood something and it turns out you didn't. It can be really difficult to be honest with yourself if you have a convenient excuse nearby. But, you know, there are people who, for example, I mean, students' biases about what they expect a math professor to look like happen a lot. There are a lot of female professors, especially younger ones, who some students will you know, import their own biases about what a mathematician should look like. And use that as an excuse to not introspect about, like, you know, did I actually learn the stuff? Could I have done something different? Because it's it's a way of externalizing, you know.
So, like, where do you think those ratings, like, came from?
So one thing about me in the classroom is I'm pretty informal. I used to be very, very organized in my presentations. I had clean board work. I had everything planned out exactly how it was going to go. I realized that what that does is it makes it a performance, right? So, you know, if you go to the theater, right, the audience doesn't participate, right? That's not what it's for, right? It's a presentation and you should be quiet and all that. And that's just not, you know, you don't learn much that way. You might get inspired by going to a public lecture about something, but you're not gonna do the hard work of learning.
Yeah.
And so I want us to do the hard work of learning. So I tend to try to actually break that.
Yeah.
Right. And that violates an expectation.
Yeah.
Right. So students come in and they want to have stuff presented to them. Right. That's what they're expecting. That's what they've been trained in, etc. I think I also tend to be a little bit playful sometimes with quizzes and exams. So I'll put a question on an exam that says something like, here's a joke, explain why it's funny. Well, I mean, I think it's awesome. But if you're a student who is expecting to see, like, do this computation, do this computation, do this computation, and you come into an exam and, you know, I've given you an equation and I say, here's a multiple choice question, which one of these common food items does the graph most resemble?
Yeah.
It throws you off your game. It's unexpected, right? Now, I think those problems, you know, the explain the joke problem and the identify what this thing looks like problem, perfectly defensible, perfectly, you know, if you understand the material, it is a little bit different from what people were expecting.
Yeah. So the last question I have is, when I researched you, this picture of your Twitter came up. And I thought, I just want to know the backstory on it.
Yeah, no, I just decided that I wanted some big curly demon horns.
Okay.
And then I got them, and I think I just bought a new house at the time, so I had all my stuff and, you know, just moved in.
Moved around, yeah.
It was like, selfie in the new house, demon horns, why the hell not?
So look at the camera and give a nice smile and wave.
Oh, yeah, that good call. After this interview ended, I realized one thing. Rate My Professor is more like a therapy blog than is a constructive tool for students to use. This interview made me realize that Dr. Andrew Cooper is a very well-spoken, nice, funny, and passionate man. While a lot of students may not agree with his idea of putting jokes into his tests, I thought it was a pretty funny idea. While I can't speak too much about his scholarly expertise, I can speak about his personality. Dr. Andrew Cooper is a great guy, and that's why I'm going to rate him 5 stars on Rate My Professor. This is me going onto the website and rating him 5 stars. I said he was hilarious, caring, and inspirational. While I've never had a class with Dr. Andrew Cooper, I had a half-an-hour interview with him regarding his teaching style. He's a very well-spoken man who understands his infamous reputation garnered by this website. He really cares about students' well-being and success in mathematics. Don't judge a book by its cover. Dr. Andrew Cooper's rating is now a 1.5 out of 5 stars. This almost brings a tear to my eye. While this review really didn't help his overall stats too much, I hope it serves as a light in the dark tunnel of all the negative reviews. And I hope it allows Dr. Andrew Cooper to have more of a chance to express the true sweetheart of a professor that he really is. Thank you, Dr. Andrew Cooper. Never judge a professor by their Twitter profile picture.
Thanks for watching. 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 Thanks for watching.